And it's another day in paradise. And we're going to be talking about nothing else other than early stage founders growing to become later stage founders, growth, what growth looks like. And as always, it would be a cross section between the tactics and strategies that you need to be able to get fundraising and the tactics and strategies that you need to be able to grow. That's it. They're both intertwined. They're very intertwined. Today, I would argue as a VC that they are more intertwined than they've been in maybe 15, 20 years. VCs are not getting money from LPs in general. That's limited partners. Angels are more careful than they've ever been before. Hardly anybody is investing on the basis of, I have this vision, I have this dream, this is what it looks like. Everybody is looking for proof points that a company is going to be able to get through, at least through a seed round and preferably through a Series A. Like, that's how difficult this market is. To layer on top of that, it used to be that you could get your Series A at 100,000 a month, maybe 150. Now it is somewhere between $400,000 and $800,000 a month in revenue. So the founders, the bad news with all of this is that you have the bridges between the land masses are much bigger. Bridge between the land mass of pre-seed to seed is much bigger. Before, you could raise money with like no revenue. Now you got to be able to show traction, right? Then that gap from there to a seed is much bigger. It used to be a seed was at 20, 30K a month. And except for exceptional founders like the one I have on today, most of the founders need to have 100 to 150. And of course, from seed to A. What does all of that mean? It means that math has become extremely important with these companies. And that math of being able to see, well, they did this, 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 and this. If they just did this multiplied by 50, can you imagine what the benefits of that would be and what we'd be able to do with that? Like, that's the game. That's the only thing that the game is, right? And so today I have an incredible founder on. I'm going to talk a little bit about TITL when I bring Ori on. But before that, I always give a little message. And that message is always, as a founder, what's the biggest thing that has happened with this particular Irish VC in the last week or so? And how can you learn from that, which is going to set the tone for the call? And I'm going to turn the word confidence into belief, because I think belief has become the single most factor in every single thing that founders are doing. And you hear me talking a lot about Matchbook here, because I want to actually be able to thread the needle myself alongside the founder, so we can show that when you have a great product, but when you have a GTM, a go-to market, which is not exactly correct, if you're not careful, you can die. But if you choose the right partners and the right people around you, you can get the GTM back again and you can go up. But what you cannot do is continue with a go-to market, which is not aggressive and successful, and hope for results that's anything different than failure. And so everybody knows, and about 3 or 4 months ago, we jumped in super heavy on Matchbook because we loved the founder, great executor. We loved the product, incredible data product, but we didn't love the GTM. And we knew that the company was going to struggle on the GTM. So we put together a GTM roadmap going forward. The first thing that we did, which is now completed, and you're going to be able to see it this week if you look at Matchbook AI's website. Look at it today and then look at it in a week's time. And the website will show you the colors have changed, the look has changed, the messaging has changed, everything has changed. What I love about TITL is actually, as we were investing in TITL back at the beginning, they changed a bunch of their stuff as well. I won't take the wind out of their sails, but they did this. It was the first most important thing that TITL did when they started, kind of. But for Matchbook, it was a rebuilding of a story. The old narrative didn't work anymore. Nobody believed. They didn't believe because the investors weren't making money, the rounds weren't going fast enough, things were just too tough. So if you don't like the story, build a different story. New logo, new messaging entirely, new vision entirely, new colors entirely, new website entirely. And honest to God, if I could have changed the name, I would have changed the name, but it's okay. It probably would have been a little bit too much after this kind of period with these companies. That all got done in a 2-month period. It is a thing of beauty. The other thing is that if you're going to change the story, you've got to show proof that that story is what it is. So we started selling hard, but I mean like dirty, gritty, nasty selling. Like forget about pretty Facebook ads and Instagram and going out to market and saying, we have a better data solution. I'm talking about like crowing with your fingernails through the people you know to get referrals. But you know what happened? Pipeline went from $400,000 or $300,000 to $4.4 million because there's gold out there. Most people are just not happy to get their pretty little fingernails dirty, but you have no choice. The next stage is we're going to turn Matchbook into a media company. What do I mean by this? I mean that rather than thinking of themselves as a product, they think of themselves as a radio show, for example. Everything is about the messaging that's going out to the listeners. In their case, we're going to do lots of stuff, everything from webinars to physical things. And I will keep you updated as we go along. But for now, before we get to stage 2, which is the media center, and then stage 3, which is to build up partnerships, building a telemarketing center in New York, focus on what's been done at the beginning, because everybody needs to have belief in your story. If the belief was never there, you need a different story. Or you need a different main character in your story. Or you need a different villain in your story. Or you need to rewrite something which is better, right? Because it could be the product itself, which is your problem. But if you're going to rewrite the story, it's got to be believable or you're dead. And then after that, we get to the other stuff. So without further ado, now that you've got that, now that you know that only beautiful stories are going to... Actually, I'll say one more thing. There are 3 companies in this market today, and then I want to bring Ori in because I think it's just a really nice thump for him to come in with. Company number 1 are companies that are part of the beautiful pyramid scheme that can only be made in the United States of America. And they're the companies like your OpenAI, they're the Perplexities, they're the Thinking Machine. Like Perplexity literally, if the LLMs that they were built on top of decided tomorrow that they didn't want to give Perplexity access, Perplexity would have no product. OpenAI still doesn't have a product. It just has stuff that it's working on to try and pay a little bit of the insane amounts of money that's paid. So they're part of the pyramid scheme. They were no different than Peloton 10 years ago, or Casper mattresses before that, or Compass Real Estate, that was a technology company, or WeWork, that was a technology company. What happens is Silicon Valley choose a little boy or a little girl. Actually, it's never a little girl. It's always a little boy. And then they give them a unicorn for their birthday because God bless them, they deserve it. Their mammies and daddies were very successful, so they want their boys and girls to be successful too. That is not you. So you can't think like this. They're different people, right? They're already Rothschilds. They're already in their place of position and they got what they got. Now there are 2 other kinds of startups. There's the one that has the wrong product, the wrong founder, or the wrong GTM, or all 3. And you may not know who you are yet, but it will become super transparent over a period of time because this environment that we're in, especially outside India and inside the US, is not going to change in the next 6 to 12 months. Our number 2, you are somebody who is building a story or rebuilding a story that people believe in. Now, Ori, as one of the great co-founders of TITL, has built such a story. And that's why he's raising money. That's why everybody loves him. That's why he's the darling of what he's doing. So without further ado, let me bring the great man up onto the stage.
Hey, Brian, how's it going?
I feel a little bit animated this morning.
Yeah, you've definitely got high energy. We love it.
Yeah, you know what I did last night? I went to bed at 8 p.m.
Good man.
I actually went to bed at 7 p.m. and then I did 2 calls from bed. And I woke up this morning, I feel amazing. And you're going to hate me because, again, I'm going to say I went to Miami and you're going to be like, are you kidding me, Brian? You didn't even say hello. You didn't do anything. Because I rushed in and then I went to a conference in Sunny Isles and then I spoke at the conference and I did what I did, which is that media company thing. And then I got the heck out of Dodge and I got back. I was exhausted.
I can imagine.
But I owe you seeing you. And I'm so happy that you're here because you are building it exactly as that 3rd type of company needs to build it. Absolute intensity in building product and making sure that that product is the best product it can possibly be. So as you go to market, it gets the love and attraction and appreciation and loyalty that it deserves. But would you mind, just before we kick in and we start taking lessons from startup, just maybe share a little bit with everybody your journey, your awesomeness, what you've built, and then we're going to go into like success and fundraising, but then we're also going to go into success and growth as well.
Sure. Yeah. So for background, I started off my career in banking. I was a banker for 6 years or so, and eventually had my opening to go into the blockchain space. And I built up my first NFT-based startup 7 years ago, if not a bit more. Had a pretty quick exit out of there, then had a failed startup, and then met Tory along the way and started building TITL. When we first started the company, it was called OCL, on-chain listings.
Yep.
And that's when we met you guys, and it was predominantly marketed as like a blockchain solution for real estate.
Yeah.
What we learned,
which nobody in the world knows what blockchain is,
especially the people in real estate.
Yeah.
And it was a very hard lesson for us to learn.
Some of the people in real estate don't actually know what the internet is, which is a very good lesson about you have to be very close to where your market is. You got to know your audience. If you're way outside, and I think it was like the day after we invested, you're like, yo, we're changing the name. And I was like, wow, that's really fast. But it was so brilliant that you did it because you were immediately leaning into your market and what they needed to hear, which was about titles. So please keep going.
Yeah. And that was honestly, that was our biggest hurdle. Was we had a product that fundamentally worked extremely well. It was for a very niche market, very small demographic and very small geographic use case, but it worked extremely well and it was much faster than anything else on the market. Our issue was we marketed ourselves completely wrong because we were trying to be the tech company that was trying to fix real estate instead of being the real estate company that's coming in to help basically traditional businesses.
Yeah.
So as soon as we got investment giving us enough capital to actually invest in marketing and branding, that was like one of the first big things we did. We built up a really good tech team and we rebranded ourselves entirely. And we took ourselves from a tech company to literally a title company. And that's how we branded ourselves. And the moment we started doing that, we got a lot more traction. With significantly bigger clients, and that got us to a point where we were actually able to raise capital.
And it's so clever because not even just like the basic stuff such as SEO and everything like title, but you're not making, I think what happens with a lot of technology companies is, I mentioned those 3 types of companies, but a lot of companies that are in the third type, they try to be the first type. And so they try and have a cool name, like cool everything. And they've seen all of the movies about Google and futons in the corner. And that's kind of who they become. And they forget about the fact that our job is to serve the people that are our people. Like that's our space. That's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no point in me hanging around with Series D investors and going and playing golf with them because that doesn't serve the people that I'm around. And for you, building a tech company and then going to people and saying, you've got it all wrong, is like one way of doing it that's only going to just annoy people or confuse people or make them want to take the easy road. But by going in and saying, look, you want the very best title company that you can find, these are the benefits of how that we can help you. And it just so happens that we built it on this incredible technology that nobody else knows how to use. But that's what's allowed us to be able to do this. It's a fundamentally different approach. And your benefits were huge, right? To maybe speak to a few of the people about like how building such a strong, I want to chat about, I do really believe there's 3 fundamental parts of building a great company. I think the founders, the product, and the go-to-market. And it may sound like super obvious, but most people don't get it. Like the fact that you immediately came in and said, you didn't say, oh, we built something terrible or we built something bad. You're like, no, we built the best team that we could so we could build an amazing technological product. And then within that, we built a story around it where we had the hero, we had the villain, we had the narrative, and the name of the movie was no longer called A Walk in the Woods. It was like, now it was something that people who love thrillers are going to watch and see and say, oh, I want to click into that movie and bring them through. So maybe speak a little bit to the benefits that you saw building in and why the product was so good and worth building all of this around.
So I think the reason we did it wasn't because we were like strategic geniuses. It really comes down to we had very low resources at the start, so we had no choice.
Yeah.
We put every penny we had into building tech and really trying to build this very micro use case that worked extremely well. So for context, like what we did is in real estate now, if you want to get a title report, it takes 7 days plus to get it done. We worked heavily on building our own AI models and agents that now produce title reports in sub 4 minutes. We took all that data, stored it on a blockchain, and that incrementally made it faster because now we have all this data indexed on our own database.
Yeah.
That takes years of R&D to invest in and a lot of trial and error, which honestly was most of what we did for the first 2 years. Once we got that working, and then we started getting a bit of funding to help us invest in marketing, a bit of branding, stuff like that, then we started getting takeoff. We started paying to go to conferences, but a lot of the stuff was really bootstrapped. We went to conferences by winning competitions. We entered through university. We did everything we could with
Any $5,000 prize money was this week being able to survive.
Literally, that's exactly how it was. We have a stack of the giant fake checks that we got from all these competitions, but that's how we funded ourselves.
Yeah.
And once people started seeing our name and we started hanging out with the right client types, then it all started taking off. Then we started getting traction. We started getting these big contracts, custom projects, all this stuff. But we got to that point, not because we were strategically that smart, I think because we just had no choice and we had to make it work.
Yeah, which is another way of saying you are strategically very smart. Because
yes,
you built a great product. Look, at the end of the day, the stuff that we do is not terribly complicated if we build amazing product that transforms people's lives. Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
If we don't, that's when we have to get really clever about things. So the strategically brilliant thing to do was to build a great product that transformed people's lives. And just what you just said there about titles is so ridiculous. Like 4 to 7 days to get, it's like, that's crazy. And for you to be able to do it within a couple of minutes is transformative. It's there and it's there. And so why would you have any word for your name that's anything other than representative of that huge change that you had? And so I want to go through go-to-market in a second, but just before we dig into that, as you were building out the product, how did you choose the very best technological people? And please, everybody who's listening to this, take note. Right now, TITL are going through, they're very strong, and they've just raised like a great round. They're fast making their way through to a Series A, which my guess is that you'll be there by the end of next year, but we'll see. But like, it's going to be a masterclass. And I promise you, you will look back on this company in 3 to 5 years' time, and everybody will say, what amazing founders, what an amazing product, and what an amazing exit. I think the only challenge you're going to have is a little bit like the WhatsApp challenge, depending at what stage it's at. It's like, when do you get off the merry-go-round? Because within a period of time, probably Series A to Series B, a bunch of people are going to be looking to acquire you, like just because you're very naturally acquirable product. So just talk to us a little bit about the technology and the team that you built around it, and how you intentionally built that out.
Yeah. So, okay. So at the beginning, the way we started was basically me and Tory running a team of interns. We had a little bit of money, and what we did is we basically wanted to build a product that was a big AI web scraper that could open up all these PDF documents from municipality offices, read them, extract the data, index it, and then present it on a simple PDF. So we started off literally just using Gemini and ChatGPT to read documents, pull out information, and then save it on a blockchain. We use the Polymesh blockchain, which is a blockchain focused solely on real world assets, tokenization, digitization, and was really well built for our use case. And then we started working very closely with the Gemini team on actually creating AI agents and making the model significantly more dynamic. So that heavy investment we did into proving the use case for Miami-Dade built this framework to expand us nationwide with very little friction. So the model we built in our first 2 years of development can now scale. We can add a state within a few weeks versus taking 2 years to add a new state now. But that's only because the framework we built was so tough. And then after we started getting a bit more funding, We hired two heads of tech internally, and now we have a CTO who's going to be announced in probably the next week. And both those guys have 20 plus years of full stack development, AI specialists, and we've basically got them working directly with the Google Gemini team and with Polymesh in order to upgrade all of our tech. But now everything is running almost autonomously. So we built Miami in 2 years. Let's say we're adding Georgia next, and it's going to take us a few weeks.
Incredible. And when did you get your first traction? I remember, I think the first time we ever spoke, you were getting very deep in. Like you did something actually which was very similar to what Matchbook did at the beginning, which I think is very brave and very difficult, which is that you went for larger customers at the start. Like you started hunting elephants, which is a terrible phrase, but you started going for like the really big folks rather than little people and trying to like crawl your way up. Just talk a little bit about that strategy as well.
Yeah. So at the beginning, we kind of did both. Obviously, we were going for the big fish. But in order to prove traction, and obviously every investor wants to see traction, we went after very small fish just to show that, yeah, the client likes the product. We have reviews on our Google now. We have videos of people saying they love the product, and we really had to test it out and get a lot of feedback. But at the same time, since day one, we've been hunting the big fish.
Yeah.
In our case, that's the underwriters, the lenders, the title agents, and so on. And we managed to get in early on with, I'm going to say 2 or 3 underwriters who are very, very close to us now. And those clients are going to be big contracts for us. But also we have relationships and partnerships with government bodies now. Tory and I are going to DC next week to discuss policy using AI in the title space. So those relationships took a long time, and in order to fuel us to get there, we did go after small clients just to prove and test the product.
Yeah, and I remember, and that's what's very brilliant. Like I remember the first time we spoke, you were saying, "Yeah, we're working with the local city to be able to see if we can bring in." And I was like, that's going to be the hardest thing in the world to do. But the fact that you're there, but you're supplementing it by going after other folks as well, it will pay dividends because the relationships just take an awful lot of time. But if you don't start them until you get to your Series A, it's too late because you've got too many little minnows that are coming through. So it's very smart. What would you say? And I want to look for everybody who's listening here. These calls are kind of broken down to 3 different types of calls. One is I just come on and answer a ton of questions, and you get somebody who's just actively investing in great founders breaking through, but also actively investing in companies that for whatever reason don't make it. So you get to ask me like a bunch of questions. Then the second one is obviously we bring in these experts who are growth experts, and you get to ask the growth experts as well. I personally think like this is the biggest of all because you're either listening because you're an investor, in which case you want to get access to the great founders that are scaling quickly. Like this is one of those founders. You should be asking the questions that you would want to ask as an investor to see how valuable it is. If you're a founder and you want to grow, you want to be able to get through the pre-seed to the seed to the A quickly. This is a top 0.1% company that is doing it really successful. So again, throw questions in there as well. And so at this stage, I want to jump in a little bit into go-to-market with Ori. And I want to talk about like what we know how he built the product. We know how he built the team. We know how he went after the big fish, but he also supplemented with the small fish as well so they can get to go through it. We're going to talk now about how he raised the money, what that journey looked like, and also how he built the traction to date. And then I want to go into the next phase of, right, if we know Series A is $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a month in revenue, what does the journey look like to get there? And how are you going to be able to measure that so you can actually just have you both on that trajectory where you're like, okay, we're on target, we're on target, we're on target, we're on target. Okay, go, Series A. So there's a load there. But we can start just with the first bit of the round and the GTM to get to where it's taking you to today.
Yeah. So we took our product live at large scale last December. When we took it live in December, we started getting a lot of traction. We had small fish, like smaller clients basically working with us, but we started noticing that there was interest from very, very big players that wanted orders that we could not handle with our infrastructure. They were way too big for the product. So The way we actually met our investors was through the Florida Venture Forum and Emerge, both of which we got into through contests. And we won one of them. The second one, we came like third place. But that got us on stage in front of really, really good investors. And basically, the investors we met there are the investors we're going to be closing with in the next few days.
Amazing.
The way we got their attention was showing that there is interest from the biggest players in the market, and that we were able to lock down LOIs. We had partnership agreements with, honestly, like the perfect use case for our product. We managed to lock them in. And going through the raise and going through the due diligence, we actually polished off all of our business models, our post-raise strategies. And what was interesting is we barely invested in marketing. We had such a small marketing budget that everything was coming through business development, through just organic sales channels. Basically, we had no SEO optimization at the time. We had no email marketing. We had very little stuff. But because we invested so heavily in the product and just getting ourselves in front of the right people, we started getting that organic traction. And then through the raise, we polished everything off. And now we have a whole post-raise strategy that should send us into a 7-figure year.
But I think what you said is so important. Everybody gets totally freaked out by Facebook ads don't work and Google ads don't work and everything else. But really that piece about like dirt under your fingernails and calling people and getting referrals and getting access. Like I want to show this just while we're talking as well, because I think First of all, I think Ori has bet his life savings on one prop tech trend becoming mainstream by 2027. But I'm going to ask him to come in on this question afterwards, because it's an awesome question for a Monday morning. But I want to, before I just do that, I want to underline what he said there. Really great founders, they know who the connectors are to the point. So if Ori knows that a Jones Lang LaSalle or a CB Ori or a Cushman and Wakefield, like he knows he's got probably 40, 50, 60 ins to that company. He also knows it's going to be really difficult, or Remax or whoever it is, like whether it's residential or commercial. But he also knows that it's going to be very difficult because those people need to have an incentive. So it's not going to work just by doing one. He might have to make 50, 60 phone calls to get through, but these are the biggest people in the space. And there's only 20 of them. And the same applies for all of you, right? But it's about clawing your way up. And some of them will be phone calls and some of them will be, oh, I see this head guy from CBRE is speaking at this conference at this time. I'm just going to have to go there and literally talk to the person. Like, was it like that? Because I think hardly anyone does this stuff. Yeah. And it's the thing that makes the biggest difference at the beginning.
Yeah. I'll give you guys like funny examples, but there was, even 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, we called Brian and basically said, we have no money, we're in trouble. And we don't know what to do next. We were terrified, and literally we did bet our life savings on going to very specific conferences, on investing in the last bits of money we had into very, very specific business development cases so that we could get the traction we needed to get to the next step. We've done it numerous times. I can tell you from my own personal experience, even when I started trying to get into banking, I didn't go to a target school. I managed to get into banking through LinkedIn networking.
Wow.
Some of our biggest clients for this year came from LinkedIn outreach. And that was all hand done by me. Like if you go through my LinkedIn messaging, it's tens of thousands of direct messages to people. 1 in 1,000 will hit, but usually that 1 in 1,000 will be a good one. And that, like, we've bet all the cards on doing stuff like that. And that got us to this point. Like you're unfortunately, as an early stage startup, you're a bottom feeder and you have to prove yourself worthy of getting these people to answer you. So either you're showing them your vision, either you're showing them your product that's going to change something, or you're just showing them your grit and you're not stopping until they answer you. But we had to do that countless times in order to get the traction we have today.
Yeah. You know what's so awesome is, like, in this market, people like you shine like the brightest star in the sky. Like you shine so bright because hardly anybody else is prepared to do this. It's not that nobody else is able to do this. There's like maybe I have 5 companies in the portfolio who are this good at what Ari's talking about right now. It's like North up in New York are very similar. right? Where I always remember the first time, and I remember it with you as well. I remember even with you working through the interns, because one thing is saying, oh, we have some interns. Another thing is actually getting a bunch of people to work for you on a regular basis, like without paying them, and then trying to make that thing work. And at the same time, you're trying to keep them so that they get like, and so you did it continually over and over and over and over and over again. And you were continually reaching out to people and continually looking for referrals on. That's the secret, my friends. It's not about anything very glamorous or about like a superstar coming in and just waving a magic wand. It's about that continual and then refined outreach where you're learning from what's happening the previous day, and then you're increasing the amount, and you trust in math. If you have a great product, that will work. If you have a bad product, it also works because it tells you that you have a bad product. So yeah, it was just legendary what you've done. By the way, what do you think is the biggest trend in prop tech for 2027?
I think the biggest thing is going to be it's digital infrastructure. It all comes down to databases. What we've learned through this process is that there is almost no centralized database for any of this information. We obviously started off with an amalgamation product, but our whole goal is to create an on-chain land registry where it can store and protect all this stuff, because the only people storing land registry information now are underwriters and municipalities. And everyone has different opinions. Everyone has different databases. Some are online, some are in libraries, some are on paper. And our whole goal is to centralize it. And I truly think once that data gets centralized, you can actually create automatic infrastructure that doesn't exist. Like it doesn't make sense to us why real estate transactions take weeks, if not months, to settle and cost you $5,000 to $10,000 to process. We live in a world where everything is digital, where you can settle a stock trade instantly, and you can wire money across the world instantly using digital currency. But when you want to buy a house, it takes months. So that's kind of that's our big goal long term.
Everybody is so old in real estate. There's so much opportunity, to your point. Like I know so many people in real estate, they don't even really do emails. Never mind, they'll do text, but they don't even really do emails. They definitely don't do anything that goes beyond that. And so what Ori is talking about is that gap between the future and today. The bigger the gap is, the better. In real estate, the gap is just enormous. And so there's probably going to be 5 or 6 or 7 trends, but they all have to be. But look at like the transformative impact we're talking about. When Ori says everybody needs title, like it's not a choice, right? Which means it's hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue every year. Whoever's going to own that, like period, it's a guaranteed. Whoever is the top 3 people in that space are all unicorns. Like that's a given, right? And if we know that like today is 7 days and the future is like, or today is also 4 minutes, depending on, like it's not a choice. The only thing literally they have to do in the next 12 to 24 months is build trust. And also make sure that the product stays ahead of everyone else, but become almost a media center and build trust as well. I'm going to answer this question because I just want to be very clear on this with everybody. Investors are generally useless the day they become investors to everybody in the world. Okay, including me, including everyone. We're all useless. So people have got to stop looking at investors as being some kind of solution to things. Investors desperately need founders. When Ori does really well, then, my wife will stay with me. So like, it's all good. Like we need founders. We don't have any other product. And so I'll give you Matchbook as a great example and a really good learn. I just did an email. He's done an email actually, but I participated. And so the email pretty much says to all investors, this is what happened before. This was the old story. This is what's happening now. This is the new story. And there are 67 of you, and each of you will be getting a phone call, not an email, a phone call. And on that phone call, even though we're raising money, we've no interest in any money from any of you. We want one referral. And on that phone call, we will spend you 15 minutes. We'll spend 15 minutes explaining what is the perfect referral while you are going through your LinkedIn, your contact list, and everything else, and you will give that referral during that 15 minutes. So that's the only thing you want to know from investors. The people you really want to learn from is people like Ori, because he's building a unicorn today. And with the greatest of respect, and I have nothing but respect for people who built unicorns 10 years ago, that's too long ago. You need to know today What are the things that you need to learn to be successful in building something out today? So forget investors, other than referrals. Everybody is an idiot. All investors are is just dumb, less dumb money, but it doesn't matter. It's still dumb money. Focus on your customer, building what's built. I want to add one extra thing. Yeah, I'll throw this in here just for shits and giggles. But then afterwards, I really want to focus on what comes next. You've raised a couple of million. You're going to be in great shape. Now you are no longer in the place you were before. You've got to be thinking, hey man, if I did this with that, now that we know how to like build properly, we are going to absolutely crush in the next year. So maybe single technology and prop tech that everybody should be sleeping on right now. I think he's just drilled down one extra step from what the great SPD said. But then afterwards, let's jump into what comes next after raising money to maximize the growth that you're going to get, and also to make sure that the money is best spent.
Yeah. So look, I don't think it comes down to a tech. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to the product and the use case. You can have the coolest flashy tech like we did with on-chain listings. We were using blockchain when it was super hot to use blockchain. But we didn't market the use case enough. We were marketing the tech more than anything. And that was our biggest mistake. What we had to reshift, which we spent a lot of money on doing, was what is the perfect use case to the client and how will they best understand us? And once you prove that you're faster and cheaper and safer than everyone else, then they're going to gradually move towards you.
Yeah.
But if you market yourself as like, we're the AI real estate agent, no one's going to take it because real estate agents work just fine right now. Why would I use a computer when the system is fine? Like you're not really going to save me any money. You're not going to do anything significantly better. You have to show a traditionally designed product with new infrastructure and with significant benefit. Once you have that, I think you do really well.
The thing that terrifies me is AI girlfriends. And we shouldn't go here today, but like, hopefully it just explains the difference. Like nobody wants an AI real estate person because they want someone to be able to say, "Shut the house," blah, 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 but they want the brilliance of it underneath. I don't know about an AI girlfriend. I think AI girlfriends, AI boyfriends, the world is going to get very scary very soon.
We spend enough time on our own. I don't think we need AI girlfriends right now.
Okay, stop, Brian. Okay, so GTM going forward. You've raised a ton of money. You're in great shape. You have an amazing team that you've built out. You have a product that absolutely crushes in the market. What do you do tomorrow?
Yeah, so the first thing is we're putting our heads down for the next, I'm going to say 60 days, and we're just scaling our tech, making it functional so that we can work nationwide without any friction. With that allows us to go into every state with basically offering the exact same product we're currently offering in Florida, but in every state in the US, and making sure that our database can store absolutely everything that we're taking. Wow. So we have a bunch of custom projects that we're building out for different client types. We're making sure that every piece of data we're sourcing and collecting for these guys, we're indexing and hashing correctly. And that's actually all staying on the blockchain and being protected. So we have whatever, 1 to 2 months where we're just prepping and scaling. At the end of Q1, we're deploying all these new states with basically 2 or 3 new products, which were always our final goal, but now we have the money and the time to actually lock in these clients and these products. So that's our focus. I'm gonna say we're gonna do 2 to 1 tech to marketing, because our marketing is all B2B and we're all going directly after the big fish. We don't necessarily need to have the SEO optimization.
By the way, that's a very important point that you've just said there. And you're not the first one to be saying it in this market. The really great founders are working partnerships really hard, much harder than ever before, because one to many means you don't need to do a ton of marketing. They do it for you. And maybe you pay like 10, 20%, sometimes 30% on the back end. Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Cheap cost of marketing because it's all on the back end.
Yeah.
So I love that. But what you know is the moment those partners don't have a good product or can't expand out to a good product, that entire channel is at risk. I agree with you. I think you can get up to like $1 million, $2 million a month just with partners.
Agreed. We've got really, really strong partners lined up as well. And a lot of what we've built up until now has been APIs for them to utilize. So our marketing effort is going to be predominantly focused on brand recognition, showing off the partnerships that we have, attending conferences, sponsoring, doing stuff like that, as opposed to paying for ads. We're going to do LinkedIn, but email maybe a little bit, not too much. It's all going to be focused on high touch, big partnerships. We just don't need, for our business model, it just doesn't make total sense to do the B2C style.
Yeah, it's very brilliant. And so it's actually very similar to what I was saying earlier on. It's like, make sure the brand is all perfect, make sure you have enough money, then you build a media company, and then you build the partners, or vice versa, right? Because you'll have the more, I actually see you doing these, with Matchbook. One of the things that we helped them with was building out almost it's like a tour, which they do with partners. And in their case, they call it the Broken Tour. And the Broken Tour is to get all of the top chief data officers to come into one of the partners' building to talk about the biggest thing that's broken within data, which everybody wants to talk about because it's like it's a monster issue right now. But they'll bring in like 2 or 3 big daddies, so those people can like drive the conversation and encourage other people to come in. But then what happens is it's powered by Matchbook. So you have a Moody's or a Dun & Bradstreet paying for it. You have the chief data officers coming in. You have 2 or 3 like influencers that are coming in because they love the idea that major people were there, and Matchbook power it all. I actually see a very similar thing in TITL, whereby you can create these huge engagements of people, which is solving the biggest problem in property, which is integration with technology, right?
Yeah.
And you do those things for free most of the time because a Trammell Crow or a Cushman or whoever else, they'll partner with you. They'll be like, we have this beautiful office in this space. We'll get some wine and some whiskey and a little bit of nibbles to eat. And before you know it, you've just got like 150 new prospects in a room for 0 cost.
Yeah. But that's the difference between high touch and low touch, right? A low touch business is a business that is essentially automated. You don't have a long sales turnover period, and it's all digital. We're in a high touch business, so we have to be in front of people. We have to spend time with them, educate, do the schmooze. We have to do all of that. We have to do demos, teach them how everything works, and then we develop the client partnership.
And you know what's happening just on that issue? They're actually, what's really fascinating about today, and you may not see it in Miami as much as I see it here in California, but I had one of the streaming companies come to me the other day, and they wanted to do events in Expert Dojo, ongoing educational events, but they're not one of the main streaming companies. They're like the platform underneath the streaming companies. But even they believe that in this market we're in right now, people are craving human touch in such a massive way that actually you need to have your brand out there. So I'm totally with you, but I think you're so far ahead of everybody else in doing this because the entire market is going to just go whoomp in this direction in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think so. Look, everyone's using the AI girlfriends, chatbots, automated emails. None of it feels personalized and tailor-made. When you start talking to bigger companies, if you're doing B2B, you should be spending time with the clients and customizing things for what they need. One size fits all barely works in the industry, at least in what we're doing.
Yeah, I love this. And I want to make sure, I want to get you last comment. Before we do, I'm just going to reinforce this one more time. Investors are dumb. You just want their money. That's all you want. You like having brilliant people around you in your team. That's why you build an amazing team. Having phenomenal advisors around you who understand the industry and maybe understand the investment landscape. That's why you have incredible advisors around you. And having people like Ori and people like this who are really blasting ahead, they're the kind of people that you want to know because they're doing it today. Investors, you just want them to leave you alone and maybe give you some referrals of other companies that they have in a space that you want to be around. That's it. Other than that, build the people around you and don't build a comfort blanket. What would you say, speaking to investors and also speaking to founders, growth over the next 12 months, and then after we finish that, because that becomes self-explanatory for anybody who's looking to invest, like this is all we invest in, guys and gals, people who are growing at their level, there are golden tickets. They're the ones that allow us to stay in this game. So just share with people what you think that would look like. But then also maybe the biggest tip, speaking to founders, that you can give people for building an incredible company that's going to be successful in this market.
Yeah. So look, I'll disagree with you on a green flag for potential investors for one reason, because I think, especially if an investor is taking a board seat at your company, you need to know you can trust them. There's always one thing that aligns, is you guys want to make the company successful. So for that, we know we align. The second thing is, do they agree with your vision? Because if you don't agree on the vision and you see the company going in separate directions, you're going to have conflict. The two investors we're bringing in both believe in our 3-year vision and also believe in our 5 to 10-year vision. So we know we're moving in the same direction together. I think that's super important to have.
Yeah.
The 12-year game plan for us is to fulfill all the demand we've generated over the past year. We've worked exceptionally hard at creating a tech that we can now scale and get these guys using. And there's a massive use case for it. Like literally, we're able to produce what most people would spend $500 on producing, and it costs us less than $1. And it takes us 4 minutes. It takes them 7 days. So that all we need to do is scale it, get it into the right people's hands, and let it run. On the back end, my long-term goal is store as much data as we can and create a massive database that lives on the blockchain. In this instance, it's a title plant or a land registry. We want to make sure we own all this data and that we've cleaned it all up, taken it off of PDFs and put it into a true hashed database. Once we have that, I think the 2-year roadmap is effortless for us.
Beautiful. Sumit, the answer is prop tech. It's prop tech. It's prop tech. And inside prop tech, it's TITL. The answer is always to the most disruptive thing that can happen in any industry, is the biggest gap between what people are getting and what people need, deserve, and want to get. And when you start seeing gaps in timeline like this, it makes no sense. Everybody wants it. So, Ori, man, I'm so pleased to be with you, on this journey. You guys are absolute animals. You're building it as it should. Like I said, I already know you guys. If you want to be, you'll be acquired in the hundreds of millions. And if you don't want to be, you can build this thing up to be something absolute monster when you pick up your own Horizon 3. Congrats on everything you've built. You're awesome. Anyone who wants to contact you, especially investors, Kishley, if you are there, put it up. But if not, do you mind just sharing oh, there we go. There you go. You got the email there. We'll just do email. That's all. That's fine. And so, yeah, look, you're a beast. Keep on building the moment. Keep on doing what you're doing. And then let's turn this into something spectacular.
Incredible. Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.